The phone vibrated against the nightstand at 3 in the morning, its blue glow cutting through the darkness like an unwelcome intruder. I woke instantly, my eyes darting to Ashley's side of the bed where she was fumbling with the device, her movements frantic and deliberate. "Who's calling at this hour?" I mumbled, my voice thick with sleep. Ashley jolted, nearly dropping the phone before quickly sliding it beneath her pillow. "Nobody," she whispered, settling back against the sheets with practiced casualness. "Just a notification. Go back to sleep, Jason." I felt the lie hang between us, as tangible as the midnight air. Her breathing was too controlled, too measured for someone who had been startled awake. This wasn't the first time I'd caught her like this in recent months, secretive glances at her phone, hushed conversations that ended abruptly when I entered the room, her scent changed from the familiar vanilla to something exotic and unknown. Sleep abandoned me as I lay there, listening to Ashley's breathing gradually slow into a convincing imitation of slumber. The ceiling fan spun lazily above, its soft whirring providing a soundtrack to my churning thoughts. 4 years of marriage and suddenly I was sleeping next to a stranger. Morning arrived with painful brightness. I watched through half-closed eyes as Ashley moved efficiently around our bedroom, selecting a sleek black dress that seemed excessive for a weekend. "Big meeting today?" I asked casually, propping myself up against the headboard. She nodded without meeting my eyes. "Last-minute client emergency. The Henderson account is teetering, and Marcus needs all hands on deck." Her fingers worked quickly, fastening an expensive necklace I'd given her for our anniversary. "I might be late tonight." "I could drive you," I offered, swinging my legs over the side of the bed. "Save you the hassle of parking downtown on a Saturday." "No." The word came out too sharp, too defensive. Ashley softened her tone, adding, "I mean, I might need to go straight from there to the office. No sense in you waiting around." I nodded, studying the slight flush spreading across her neck, her tell since college whenever she was lying. "Right. Makes sense." 20 minutes after she left, I was showered and dressed, my fingers dialing my best friend's number. "Mike, I need to borrow your car." "What's wrong with yours?" he asked, confusion evident in his voice. "Ashley would recognize it," I said simply. A long pause followed. "You sure you want to do this, man?" No, I wasn't sure. But the alternative, this gnawing uncertainty, was worse. "I'll be there in 15 minutes. Driving Mike's nondescript sedan, I kept a careful distance, following Ashley's red BMW through weekend traffic. She didn't head downtown toward her office as expected, but instead drove to West Hill, the upscale part of the city we couldn't afford when house hunting. She parallel parked with practiced ease in front of Chez Laurent, the kind of French restaurant where dinner reservations needed to be made months in advance. I found a spot half a block away, slouched in my seat as Ashley stepped out of her car, smoothing her dress. She checked her reflection in the car window, applied fresh lipstick, and walked with purpose toward the restaurant entrance. The confidence in her stride felt like a knife twisting in my chest. Through the large front windows, I watched as she was greeted by the maitre d', with familiar warmth, not the polite formality reserved for new guests, but the genuine smile for a regular patron. He led her toward the back out of my view. I waited 5 excruciating minutes before following, choosing a baseball cap from Mike's backseat as a poor disguise. Inside, I requested a table with a view of the rear dining section, claiming I was waiting for friends. That's when I saw them. Ashley, her face animated in a way I hadn't seen in months, leaning across a small table toward a man I'd never seen before. He was older, distinguished-looking, with confident eyes and an expensive watch that caught the light when he reached for her hand. The waiter approached my table asking if I'd like to order a drink. I barely heard him. My attention was fixed on the way Ashley threw her head back in laughter at something the stranger said, the way her fingers lingered against his wrist, the casual intimacy that only comes from spending significant time together. "Sir? Would you like to see a menu?" the waiter persisted. I stood abruptly, mumbling an excuse about my friends canceling. As I rushed out, the cool air hit my face, bringing no relief from the heat rising inside me. Back in Mike's car, I gripped the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white, my world suddenly tilting on its axis. The confident, successful man I'd always believed myself to be had been reduced to this. A husband spying on his wife, discovering secrets she'd carefully hidden. But this was just the beginning. If Ashley was playing a game, I needed to understand all the rules before making my next move. I started the engine, no longer uncertain about what needed to be done. The man watching his marriage crumble wouldn't be the same one who emerged from its ruins. For the next 2 days, I performed in the role of oblivious husband with Oscar-worthy dedication. I laughed at Ashley's jokes over dinner, nodded sympathetically at her work complaints, and pretended not to notice how she checked her phone when she thought I wasn't looking. Each moment felt like walking through quicksand, exhausting, suffocating, and pulling me deeper into a reality I never wanted to face. Tuesday morning arrived with heavy rain drumming against our bedroom windows. Ashley was rushing around our room like a hurricane, muttering about being late for an early client meeting. "Have you seen my umbrella?" she asked, rummaging through her closet. "Hall closet, top shelf," I answered automatically, watching her from over the rim of my coffee mug. She darted out, returning moments later with the umbrella. "I might have dinner with the team tonight," she said, applying lipstick without looking at me. "The Henderson project is approaching deadline." "The Henderson project again. How convenient." "No problem," I replied. "I've got that report to finish anyway." She kissed my cheek quickly, a perfunctory gesture that lacked the lingering warmth it once held, and hurried toward the door. I heard her swear softly in the hallway, followed by the sound of her purse contents spilling. "Everything okay?" I called out. "Fine. Just dropped everything. I'm already late, I'll clean it later." The front door slammed, and the house fell into sudden silence. I counted to 60 before walking to the hallway where her belongings were scattered across the hardwood floor. Lipstick, wallet, keycard, mints, receipts. I gathered them mechanically, placing each item back into her designer purse. That's when I noticed what was missing. Her phone. Moving to our bedroom window, I watched her BMW back out of the driveway and disappear down the street. There, on her nightstand, lay her smartphone, the device that had become practically an extension of her hand over the past months. I stared at it like it was a live grenade. The rational part of my brain warned me to leave it alone, that invading her privacy would only confirm I'd become someone I never wanted to be. The wounded part of me, however, needed truth more than dignity. As if summoned by my internal debate, the phone screen lit up with a notification. A message preview appeared, visible even from where I stood. "Nathan from work. Can't wait for tonight. Same hotel." The room spun around me as I sank onto the edge of the bed. Nathan. So that was his name. Not just a mysterious stranger at a restaurant anymore, but Nathan from work, with his own dedicated contact entry in my wife's phone. I picked up the device, my thumb hovering over the notification. One swipe and I could read their entire conversation. One swipe to confirm what I already knew but couldn't bear to face. Instead, I opened her app store and searched for Find My Phone applications. Within minutes, I had installed a tracking app linked to my email account. It would show me her location in real time, revealing every destination that wasn't where she claimed to be. But locations wouldn't tell the whole story. Words were what I needed, their plans, their history, how deep this betrayal went. I grabbed my keys and drove to an electronics store across town, purchasing a voice-activated recording device small enough to hide in her car. The salesman's eyes held no judgment as he processed my credit card. Just another transaction, not the desperate act of a man watching his marriage disintegrate. "Voice-activated means it only records when someone's speaking," he explained cheerfully. "Battery lasts about a week that way." "Perfect," I replied, my voice sounding distant and unfamiliar. Back home, I slipped the device under the passenger seat of her car, securing it with tape where it wouldn't be discovered during casual cleaning. Each movement felt surreal, like I was watching someone else's hands perform these actions. Someone paranoid, someone broken. I returned her phone to the nightstand exactly as she'd left it, then showered for 30 minutes, trying to wash away the feeling of what I'd done. The water couldn't cleanse the bitter taste of betrayal or the acidic burn of what I was becoming. When Ashley returned home that evening, her cheeks were flushed and her eyes bright. She immediately noticed her phone on the nightstand. "I can't believe I forgot this," she said, snatching it up. "I felt naked all day without it." I watched her unlock it, her fingers moving reflexively across the screen, checking for missed notifications. "Rough day?" I asked, forcing normalcy into my voice. "Oh yes." The client changed their requirements again. She didn't look up from her screen. "How was yours?" "Illuminating," I said truthfully. She finally glanced at me, a flicker of concern crossing her features. "You look stressed." "Just work," I lied, mirroring her own deceptions back at her. "Nothing I can't handle." She nodded, seemingly relieved that I wasn't asking questions about her day. As she disappeared into the bathroom, I heard her phone chime with another message. She took it with her, of course. 1 week, I told myself. 1 week of evidence gathering, and then I would know exactly what I was fighting for, or against. The weight of the decisions ahead pressed down on me like a physical force, but beneath the pain was something else emerging. a cold, determined resolve I hadn't known I possessed. The game had changed. Now I was playing too. The week crawled by with excruciating slowness. I maintained my facade of normalcy, playing the role of unsuspecting husband while Ashley continued her choreographed dance of late meetings and work emergencies. We moved around each other like actors following a script, saying the right lines, hitting our marks, but with no genuine connection behind the performance. Each night I checked the tracking app, watching the blinking dot of her phone visit locations that weren't her office. A high-end shopping district, a wine bar across town, and twice the same upscale hotel on the riverfront. Each discovery was a fresh wound, but I resisted confronting her. Evidence first, then action. Finally, 7 days after planting the recorder, I found myself alone in our home office, door locked, with a pair of headphones connected to my laptop. The tiny device from her car sat before me, its contents already transferred to an audio file that would either set me free or destroy me completely. My finger hovered over the play button as sweat beaded on my forehead. Once I heard their words, there would be no going back to blissful ignorance. With a deep breath I pressed play. Static filled my ears before Ashley's voice emerged, startlingly intimate in its clarity. Told him I had a client meeting. He didn't question it. A male voice responded, smooth and confident. Do you ever feel guilty about this? Pause. Sometimes. Jason's not a bad person. He's just predictable. Safe. I flinched at her assessment. After 4 years of marriage, I'd been reduced to predictable and safe. The kind of lukewarm description you'd give a reliable appliance. And I'm dangerous? The man, Nathan, sounded amused. Ashley laughed, a throaty sound I hadn't heard directed at me in months. You're exciting. You make me feel alive. We've been doing this for 6 months, Ash. When are you going to make a decision? 6 months. Half a year of deception while I remained clueless, thinking we were just going through a rough patch. My stomach twisted into knots as their conversation continued. It's complicated, Ashley sighed. We have history, a house together. I'm offering you more than history, Nathan's voice hardened. I'm talking about a future. Come to Europe with me. My business contacts in London and Paris would set us up perfectly. We could start fresh. And what about Jason? What about him? File for divorce, split the assets, move on? People do it every day. The casual way he dismissed our marriage made my blood boil. I gripped the edge of the desk until my knuckles turned white. I still feel something for Jason, Ashley admitted softly. You can't have us both, Nathan replied. I'm not interested in being your side entertainment indefinitely. I need a commitment. Their conversation shifted to logistics. When they could meet next, what excuse she would give me. Then came sounds I couldn't bear to hear. Rustling fabric, quiet murmurs, intimate noises that stabbed through me like physical pain. I yanked the headphones off, breathing heavily as though I'd run a marathon. The remainder of the recording could wait. I had heard enough to confirm what I'd suspected but dreaded knowing for certain. My wife was having an affair, and it wasn't a momentary lapse or a recent development. 6 months of calculated deception while sleeping beside me every night. I opened the tracking app on my phone, seeing that Ashley's current location was the River Grand Hotel, the same place mentioned in the text message. Nathan's words echoed in my mind, same hotel. They had a routine. A regular meeting place. With mechanical precision, I gathered my keys and wallet. The rational part of my brain urged caution, warned me that confronting them in the heat of emotion would only lead to regrets. But rationality had abandoned me the moment I heard Ashley laugh for another man. The drive to the hotel passed in a blur. Traffic lights, other cars, pedestrians, all meaningless shapes in my peripheral vision as my mind replayed fragments of their conversation. He's just predictable. Safe. You can't have us both. I pulled into the hotel parking lot and immediately spotted Ashley's BMW in the corner section, partially hidden by a large SUV. Nearby was a sleek black Audi, expensive, flashy, the kind of car chosen specifically to impress. Nathan's, undoubtedly. I parked several spaces away and sat motionless, hands still gripping the steering wheel. The hotel towered before me, each of its windows potentially concealing my wife and her lover. I could march in there now, demand the room number, create a scene they would never forget. Instead, I pulled out my phone and took photos of both their cars, documenting the time and location. If this came to legal proceedings, and increasingly, it seemed it would, evidence would matter more than emotional confrontations. A hotel employee emerged from a side entrance for a smoke break. Something about my stillness must have caught his attention because he approached cautiously. Everything all right, sir? Can I help you with anything? I lowered my window. Just waiting for someone? He nodded, then glanced at Ashley's car. A flash of recognition crossed his face. Your wife's a regular guest here, isn't she? He asked innocently. Comes in most weeks, nice lady. The floor seemed to drop from beneath me. Most weeks. I managed to ask, my voice strangely steady. Oh yes, for at least 8 months now. He smiled, oblivious to the grenade he just lobbed into my world. Always the same room too. 8 months. Not 6. I thanked him with automatic politeness, then drove away before I could change my mind about confronting them. This wasn't the time or place. I needed a better plan than blind rage, something that would leave me standing when the dust settled. The game had just become more complex and I intended to win. 3 days passed in a fog of sleepless nights and autopilot days. At work, I stared blankly at spreadsheets while colleagues' voices faded into background noise. At home, I performed the role of husband with mechanical precision, asking about Ashley's day while knowing every answer was fabricated. The tracking app showed she was planning another hotel rendezvous. Today. I left work early, driving aimlessly until I found myself parked outside the River Grand Hotel once more. The building's gleaming glass facade reflected the afternoon sun, transforming the windows into mirrors that revealed nothing of what happened inside. Ashley's car wasn't in the lot yet, but it would be soon. According to the patterns I'd documented, she typically arrived around 5:30, early enough to maintain the fiction of working late, but late enough to avoid the busiest check-in times. I entered the lobby, its marble floors and crystal chandeliers screaming of luxury and discretion, the perfect setting for secretive affairs. The front desk was staffed by a young woman with a practiced smile. Good afternoon, sir. How may I help you? I need to speak with the manager, I said, surprised by the steadiness in my voice. Minutes later, a middle-aged man in a tailored suit approached. I'm Daniel Winters, hotel manager. Is there something I can assist you with? I lowered my voice. My wife has been meeting someone here regularly. Room information would be appreciated. His professional smile didn't waver, but his eyes hardened. I'm afraid we cannot disclose guest information. Our privacy policy. I slid $500 across the counter. Please. I need to know. He glanced at the money, then back at me, conflict evident in his expression. Finally, he took the bills with a subtle movement. Room 612, he murmured. Reserved weekly under the name Nathan Ellis. With a nod of thanks, I headed toward the elevators, each step echoing against the marble floor. The ride to the 6th floor lasted an eternity, my reflection in the mirrored walls showing a man I barely recognized, hollow-eyed and grim-faced. The hallway stretched before me, plush carpet muffling my footsteps as I approached room 612. Standing before the door, I raised my hand to knock, then froze. What exactly was my plan? Storm in and catch them together? Create a scene? Demand explanations? Indecision paralyzed me. Behind this door lay the physical proof of Ashley's betrayal, no more digital breadcrumbs or recorded conversations, but the actual reality I'd been avoiding confronting directly. My hand dropped to my side. This wasn't the right moment. Confronting them now, driven by raw emotion, would only give them the upper hand. I needed to be calculating, not impulsive. I retreated to the elevator, riding it back to the lobby where I positioned myself in a corner with clear sight of the entrance. 20 minutes later, Ashley walked in, wearing a dress I didn't recognize and carrying an overnight bag. My stomach clenched as she approached the front desk with practiced familiarity. Mrs. Ellis, the receptionist greeted her with a knowing smile. Your husband has already checked in. Mrs. Ellis. Not even the decency to use her real name, but playing at being his wife while still wearing my ring. I watched her disappear into the elevator, then approached the reception desk again. The young woman looked up, her customer service smile firmly in place. Excuse me, I began. I couldn't help overhearing. That woman who just checked in, she's a regular guest. The receptionist's smile faltered slightly. I really shouldn't discuss our guests, sir. Of course I understand. It's just, I paused, manufacturing a confused expression. She looks remarkably like my colleague's wife. I'd hate to mention seeing her here if I'm mistaken. Her professional resolve cracked just enough. Oh, Mrs. Ellis has been a weekly guest for quite some time. Always the same room. Weekly? For how long would you say? She thought for a moment. At least 8 months that I can recall. The confirmation hit me like a physical blow, despite having heard it from the hotel employee days before. 8 months. While I was working late to secure our financial future, attending her family holidays, planning our 5th anniversary trip, she'd been coming here, becoming Mrs. Ellis, every week. Thank you, I managed, turning away before she could see my expression crumble. Outside in the parking lot, I documented both their vehicles again, adding to my growing file of evidence. The hotel room reservation in his name, the regular pattern of visits, the overnight bag, all pieces of an ugly puzzle I never wanted to solve but couldn't ignore. As I sat in my car, a new clarity emerged through the pain. Confronting them today would have been satisfying but ultimately self-defeating. Ashley and Nathan had orchestrated their affair with careful planning. My response needed to be equally strategic. I started the engine, my mind shifting from shocked victim to tactical planner. If Ashley could lead a double life for 8 months, I could certainly manage a few weeks of calculated preparation. By the time she realized I knew everything, it would be too late for damage control. The game was changing. No longer was I merely gathering evidence, I was building a case. And when I finally played my hand, it would be with the full advantage of their underestimation. They thought they were the only ones with secrets. They were wrong. The weekend after my hotel stakeout, I transformed our home office into a war room. With Ashley at her supposed yoga retreat, the tracking app showed her at a cabin by the lake with Nathan. I spread financial documents across the desk. Bank statements, investment portfolios, property deeds, insurance policies. 4 years of marriage laid bare in paperwork. Our lives had been thoroughly intertwined. Joint checking accounts, shared investment portfolios, retirement funds with mutual beneficiaries. The mortgage on our house was in both names, a commitment I'd once viewed as romantic but now saw as a tactical error. I photographed everything before setting up separate accounts in my name only. The following Monday I transferred half of our savings, a move that felt both justified and vaguely criminal. If Ashley noticed the missing funds, she never mentioned it. Perhaps she was too caught up in her own deceptions to monitor our finances. "You seem different," Mike observed over lunch that week. "Less haunted." I sipped my water, considering how much to reveal. Mike had been my friend since college, but friendship had limits. "I've got clarity now," I finally answered. "About Ashley?" he asked carefully. "About everything." I met his concerned gaze. "I'm seeing an attorney on Thursday." His eyebrows shot up. "That's serious?" 8 months serious, I replied, the number still bitter on my tongue. He let out a low whistle. "Jesus. What's your plan?" "When?" I said simply. The attorney's office was in a converted Victorian downtown, all polished wood and leather-bound books designed to project stability and tradition. Patricia Vega had come highly recommended for her ruthless efficiency in high-asset divorces. "Maryland is an equitable distribution state," she explained after hearing my situation. "That doesn't necessarily mean 50-50. Courts consider multiple factors: length of marriage, contributions, circumstances of separation." "What about infidelity?" I asked. Her expression sharpened. "Do you have evidence?" I placed a USB drive on her desk. Photos, location data, audio recordings, hotel receipts. 8 months of an affair with detailed documentation. Patricia's smile was cold and approving. "Then we have leverage." She leaned forward. "But remember, the smartest approach is to gather everything you need while maintaining the appearance of normalcy. The element of surprise is valuable." I took her advice to heart, returning home to perfect my performance. When Ashley suggested a weekend getaway to reconnect, I agreed enthusiastically. When she initiated sex for the first time in months, I responded with appropriate passion while feeling hollowed out inside. Each moment of false intimacy was a transaction now, my temporary discomfort in exchange for strategic advantage. Ashley seemed to sense the shift, though she misinterpreted its cause. She became more attentive, preparing elaborate dinners and asking about my day with apparent interest. Twice she canceled her work meetings, her coded language for hotel rendezvous with Nathan, to spend evenings with me instead. I almost laughed at the irony. Now that I was emotionally checking out of our marriage, she was checking back in, at least partially. "You seem happier lately," she observed one evening as we shared a bottle of wine on the patio. "More relaxed." "I've gained perspective," I replied truthfully. "Figured out what really matters." Her smile was genuine, her hand warm as it covered mine. "I've missed this, us connecting." The guilt flickered across her face so quickly I might have missed it if I hadn't been watching for it. That brief expression told me everything. She was recalibrating, hedging her bets, keeping me as her safe option while still seeing Nathan. On our anniversary, she presented me with an expensive watch. "To replace the one from your father," she explained, eyes bright with what appeared to be genuine emotion. "I know how much you loved that one before it broke." I thanked her appropriately, strapping the luxury timepiece to my wrist while remembering how she'd laughed on the recording when Nathan mocked my father's vintage watch as something a retiree would wear. Each night, I updated my documentation, noting her absences, recording conversations that contained lies about her whereabouts, photographing receipts from her purse that contradicted her stories. Patricia had advised me to create a detailed journal, which would strengthen my position if we ended up in court. The strangest part was how easy the deception became. I understood now how Ashley had maintained her double life for so long. Lying was simply a skill that improved with practice. Each day I played the role of oblivious husband brought me closer to the moment when I could finally drop the act. My phone buzzed with a text from the private investigator I'd hired on Patricia's recommendation. Subject: meeting with target again tomorrow night. Usual location. Photos obtained as requested. I replied with a simple proceed before deleting the message thread. The PI was expensive but worth every penny for the objective documentation he provided. My personal evidence might be challenged as biased. His professional surveillance would not. That night, as Ashley slept beside me, I stared at the ceiling and calculated timelines. Within weeks, I would have everything needed for the strongest possible position. The joint accounts were nearly emptied, the house deed complications addressed, and my new apartment lease secured for after the confrontation. Soon I would stop playing this exhausting double game. Soon I would show Ashley exactly who she had underestimated. And it would not be the man she thought she married. 3 weeks into my covert operation, I found myself wandering the aisles of an upscale grocery store across town. Ashley was at a client dinner, her tracking app showed she was at Nathan's condo, and I couldn't bear another evening in our house alone with my thoughts. I was examining wine bottles, contemplating which would best complement an evening of solitary strategizing, when a shopping cart collided with mine. I looked up to apologize and froze. The woman standing before me was strikingly beautiful, with dark hair pulled into a casual knot and intelligent eyes that widened in recognition a moment after mine did. "I'm so sorry," she said, pulling her cart back. "I wasn't watching where." Her voice trailed off as our mutual recognition solidified. I'd seen her face dozens of times in the photographs my PI had provided. Maria Ellis, Nathan's wife. "It's fine," I managed, uncertain whether to acknowledge our connection or pretend ignorance. She tilted her head, studying me with uncomfortable intensity. "You're Jason Andrews, aren't you?" My pulse quickened. "Do we know each other?" "No," she replied, a sad smile touching her lips. "But I've seen pictures of you on social media. Ashley's posts about your anniversary trip to Hawaii last year. You have a distinctive scar above your eyebrow." I touched the small mark reflexively, remnant of a childhood accident. "You're Maria Ellis." She extended her hand, her grip surprisingly firm. "Nathan's wife. At least for now." The casual addition of those last 4 words hung between us. I searched her face for signs of hostility but found only a weary resignation that likely mirrored my own expression. "This is..." I struggled for the right word. "Uncomfortable? Ironic? A cosmic joke." She gestured toward the wine display. "Whatever you're calling it, it requires alcohol. That Cabernet is excellent, by the way." I grabbed the bottle she indicated, somehow comforted by her directness. "Do you make a habit of befriending your husband's mistress's husband in grocery stores?" The absurdity of the situation hit us simultaneously, and we both laughed, a genuine release of tension that felt foreign after weeks of calculated performance. "First time actually," she replied. "Though I've imagined our meeting countless times." "You knew?" I asked, lowering my voice despite the empty aisle. Maria nodded, pushing her cart toward a quieter corner of the store. I followed, drawn by the possibility of honest conversation with the one person who truly understood my position. "I've known for about 5 months," she said when we stopped near the deserted organic section. "Nathan isn't as clever as he thinks. Left his email open one day." She shrugged. After the initial shock, I started paying attention. The late meetings, weekend business trips, mysterious phone calls. The familiar pattern made my stomach tighten. "Why haven't you confronted him?" "The same reason you haven't confronted Ashley, I imagine." Her perceptiveness was unnerving. Preparation takes time, especially when there's significant assets involved. I studied her more carefully, noting the designer watch and subtle quality of her clothing. Nathan's financial status was clearly substantial, something Ashley had likely considered in her calculations. "Nathan's been lying about more than just the affair," Maria continued, her voice dropping further. "There are irregularities in his business dealings. Things that wouldn't look good in a public divorce proceeding." What kind of irregularities? She hesitated. Let's just say the SEC would be very interested in some of his recent transactions. The strategic part of my brain immediately recognized the potential leverage. If Nathan was engaged in financial impropriety, exposing him could provide Ashley with motivation to separate herself from his legal troubles. Your husband made mine a very enticing offer recently, I said, testing how much Maria already knew. A fresh start in Europe. Pain flashed across her features before she masked it with practiced composure. Paris and London, she confirmed. Using contacts he only has because of my family connections. She laughed bitterly. He's planning to fund their romantic escape with money from my trust fund. We stood in silence, two strangers united by the same betrayal, surrounded by organic produce and overpriced granola. They're planning something beyond just an affair, Maria finally said. Nathan's been asking unusual questions about your company. Specific projects, leadership structure, security protocols. A cold feeling settled in my chest. I worked for a cybersecurity firm with government contracts. Information that would be valuable to competitors or worse. Ashley wouldn't. I started automatically then stopped. 2 months ago, I would have sworn she'd never cheat. My certainty about her moral boundaries had proven dangerously misplaced. We should talk more, I said, pulling out my phone. Somewhere more private. Maria nodded, taking my phone and entering her number. I have information you need, and I suspect you have pieces I'm missing. She handed it back, our fingers brushing briefly. They've had months to plan their exit strategy. We need to be smarter. Their strategy seems to involve the corporate party at my company next week, I mused. Ashley's been unusually insistent about attending. Maria's eyes lit with recognition. Nathan mentioned a major opportunity coming up. Said it was their chance to secure their future. Something clicked in my mind, puzzle pieces fitting together to form a disturbing picture. We need to be there, I said. Both of us. A joint operation? Her smile held a predatory edge I hadn't noticed before. I like how you think, Jason Andrews. As we exchanged contact information, I felt a strange sensation beneath the anger and betrayal, the unexpected comfort of finding an ally in this lonely battle. For the first time since discovering Ashley's deception, I wasn't fighting alone. To unexpected partnerships, Maria said, raising her shopping basket like a toast. And to better outcomes than they've planned, I responded, suddenly certain that whatever Ashley and Nathan had orchestrated, they'd severely underestimated their spouses. The day after meeting Maria, I returned from work earlier than usual. The house was quiet, seemingly empty, but Ashley's car was in the driveway. I moved through the rooms silently, habitually checking for signs of her presence. Water running in the master bathroom told me where she was. I set my briefcase down and was about to call out when I heard her voice, low and urgent, floating through the partially open door. We need to move faster, Nathan. I froze, instinctively stepping back into the shadows of our bedroom. Ashley was on the phone, apparently believing she had the house to herself. The company party is our best opportunity, she continued. Jason will be distracted with clients. Security will be minimal. Every muscle in my body tensed. I hadn't been imagining things. Maria's suspicions about their interest in my company were justified. I've already copied most of the sensitive files, Ashley said, her voice dropping further. But I need access to the server room for the final piece. My mind reeled. Ashley worked in marketing for a pharmaceutical company, not technology. She had no legitimate reason to be interested in our server room. Of course I remember the plan, she snapped, impatience coloring her tone. After the divorce, half of everything is mine by law. Once we sell the house, we'll have enough cash to disappear for a while. The casual way she discussed dismantling our life sent a chill through me. This wasn't just an affair, it was calculated theft of our marriage, our home, and apparently my company's confidential information. Your contact confirmed the value? She asked after a pause. $2 million is enough to start our new life? My hands curled into fists at my sides. Whatever they were planning, it involved selling something worth millions. Almost certainly proprietary information from my company. We specialized in government contract security systems. That kind of data would be priceless to certain foreign interests. I know it's risky, Ashley continued, but so is staying. If anyone discovers what we've already taken. She fell silent, apparently listening to Nathan's response. I told you I've been using his laptop when he's asleep. His password was easy, our anniversary date. She laughed softly. Sentimental fool never suspected a thing. Each word cut deeper than the last. I'd known about the affair, but this level of betrayal, using our marriage as cover while systematically stealing from my company, was beyond anything I'd imagined. After the party we'll have everything we need, she concluded. Then I'll file for divorce, and by the time it's finalized, the money will be safely offshore. I backed away silently, moving through the house and out the front door without making a sound. In my car, I gripped the steering wheel, struggling to control my breathing as the full implications sank in. Ashley wasn't just cheating, she was committing corporate espionage. Using our marriage to access sensitive information that could compromise national security systems. If she and Nathan sold that data to competitors or foreign entities, the damage would be catastrophic. People could die. My phone buzzed with a message from Maria. Found something. Need to meet. I drove to the coffee shop we'd agreed on as our meeting point, my mind processing this new reality. Maria was already there, a manila folder on the table beside her untouched coffee. You look like you've seen a ghost, she said as I slid into the seat across from her. Just heard Ashley on the phone with Nathan, I replied, keeping my voice low. They're not just planning to leave us, they're stealing confidential information from my company. Maria didn't look surprised. That confirms what I found. She slid the folder toward me. Nathan's been making contacts with several questionable international clients. I tracked his communications through our shared cloud account. Inside the folder were printouts of emails, bank statements, and travel itineraries, all meticulously organized with post-it notes in Maria's precise handwriting. The evidence painted a disturbing picture. Nathan had been laying groundwork for months, establishing cryptocurrency accounts and offshore banking connections. He's setting up a money laundering operation, Maria explained. The kind you'd need if you were selling something you shouldn't be selling. Like proprietary security algorithms from a government contractor, I added grimly. Exactly. She leaned forward. Jason, this isn't just about divorce anymore. This is criminal activity. I nodded, my decision crystallizing. We need to contact the authorities. Not yet, Maria cautioned. If we move too soon, we won't have enough evidence to ensure charges stick. They're careful. But if they get access to the final data they need. They won't, she interrupted. Because we're going to stop them at the party. But first, we need absolute proof of what they're planning. I ran a hand through my hair, the weight of the situation pressing down on me. I should go to my company's security team. And tell them what? That your wife might be stealing information? Without concrete evidence, you'll just alert them before we can catch them red-handed. She was right. Accusations this serious needed irrefutable proof. I have access to Nathan's email, Maria continued. You have access to your home. Between us, we can document everything before they make their final move. I thought of Ashley using my laptop while I slept, betraying not just our marriage vows but potentially endangering lives through her actions. The woman I'd loved had become someone unrecognizable, someone dangerous. 1 week, I agreed. We gather everything, then we go to the FBI. This isn't just corporate theft, it's potentially a matter of national security. As I left the coffee shop, my phone buzzed with a message from Ashley, working late. Don't wait up. The tracking app showed she was at Nathan's condo again. Planning, plotting, betraying. For the first time since discovering her affair, I felt something beyond heartbreak and anger. I felt resolve. This wasn't just about saving myself anymore. It was about stopping something much worse. The night of my company's annual party arrived with perfect dramatic timing, like the final act of a play that had been building toward this moment. The event was held at the Grand Pacific Hotel downtown, all crystal chandeliers, champagne fountains, and executives pretending to enjoy each other's company. Ashley spent hours preparing, choosing a red dress that hugged her curves and styling her hair in an elegant updo. I watched her transformation with detached fascination, seeing both the beautiful woman I'd married and the stranger who'd been systematically betraying me. You look handsome, she said, straightening my tie with practiced intimacy. The silver brings out your eyes. I smiled, the expression feeling foreign on my face. You look stunning. As always. Her fingers lingered at my collar, a flicker of genuine affection in her eyes. For a moment, I almost doubted what I knew, almost believed we could still be the couple smiling from framed photographs around our home. Then her phone buzzed and she checked it surreptitiously, the mask slipping back into place. Final preparations are set, she told me as we drove to the hotel. I spoke with the catering staff. Your speech is scheduled for 9:30, after the CEO's announcement. As head of our cybersecurity division, I was expected to give a brief presentation on our latest innovations. Innovations that would be worthless if Ashley and Nathan succeeded in stealing our proprietary algorithms. Perfect, I replied, wondering if she could hear the double meaning in my response. The ballroom was already crowded when we arrived, executives and their partners circulating beneath sparkling chandeliers. I guided Ashley through the crowd, introducing her to colleagues as if everything was normal, watching as she charmed them effortlessly. Jason, there you are. My CEO, Robert Graham, approached with his wife. The man of the hour. Everyone's excited about your presentation. Thanks, Robert. I've been looking forward to it myself. Ashley squeezed my arm. He's been practicing all week. Barely slept. If only she knew the real reason for my sleepless nights. Ashley, would you mind if I borrowed my star employee for a few minutes? Robert asked. Last-minute details to discuss. Of course not, she replied graciously. I'll get a drink at the bar. As Robert led me away, I caught sight of a familiar figure entering the ballroom. Maria Ellis looked stunning in a midnight blue gown, her dark hair cascading over her shoulders. Several heads turned to watch her graceful progress through the crowd. Behind her, his hand possessively at the small of her back, walked Nathan Ellis, tall, confident, exactly as I'd seen in photographs but more imposing in person. His smile didn't reach his calculating eyes as he surveyed the room. Isn't that Nathan Ellis from Meridian Systems? Robert asked, following my gaze. Didn't realize he was on our guest list. Last-minute addition, I explained smoothly. Potential partnership opportunity. Robert raised an eyebrow but didn't question further. After discussing minor details about my presentation, he released me back to the party just as the undercover FBI agents arrived. Maria had made contact with a former college friend at the bureau, presenting our evidence carefully. They'd agreed to send agents under the guise of potential clients, positioning themselves strategically throughout the ballroom. I scanned the room for Ashley, spotting her near the bar, alone, checking her watch with poorly concealed impatience. According to our tracking app, Nathan had excused himself from Maria's side and was making his way toward the service corridor that led to our temporary server setup. Time to set our trap in motion. I approached Ashley, offering her a fresh glass of champagne. Enjoying yourself? Of course, she replied, her smile tight. Though I was thinking of getting some air soon. It's rather stuffy in here. Stuffy was our code word for feeling trapped or anxious. I'd heard her use it often over the years, never realizing she was signaling discomfort rather than actual temperature concerns. Why don't you take a few minutes? I suggested. My speech isn't for another half hour. Relief washed over her face. Thanks, I think I will. I watched her weave through the crowd toward the same corridor Nathan had disappeared down moments earlier. Right on schedule. She's moving, I murmured into my concealed microphone, alerting both Maria and our FBI contacts. Maria caught my eye from across the room and nodded imperceptibly before setting her own phase of the plan in motion. She headed toward the service corridor with determined steps, her expression transforming from socialite charm to focused intensity. I gave them 3 minutes, then followed, nodding to the FBI agents positioned near the hallway entrance. The corridor was dimly lit, lined with storage rooms and service areas. At its end, a door led to the temporary network hub my team had established for the event. As I approached, I heard raised voices, Ashley's indignant tone, Nathan's lower rumble, and cutting through both, Maria's cold fury. How convenient to find you both here, Maria was saying as I rounded the corner. In a restricted area, nowhere near the party. The scene before me was exactly as we'd planned. Ashley and Nathan standing before the server room door, a small device in Nathan's hand, their expressions frozen in shock at Maria's unexpected appearance. Ashley recovered first, her eyes darting to me with growing horror as she realized I was there too. Jason, this isn't, we were just looking for. Save it, Ashley, Maria interrupted. We know exactly what you were looking for. She gestured to the device in Nathan's hand. That's a data extraction tool in case my husband tries to claim otherwise. Nathan's face hardened. Maria, you're making a scene over nothing. This is a business matter that doesn't concern you. Stealing proprietary security algorithms concerns everyone, I said, stepping forward. Especially when they protect critical infrastructure. Ashley's face paled as comprehension dawned. Jason, please, you don't understand. I understand perfectly, I replied, my voice steady despite the hurricane of emotions beneath the surface. 8 months of lies. Corporate espionage. Plans to sell national security information to the highest bidder. Maria moved closer to me, our united front causing Nathan to take an instinctive step back. "It's over," she said simply. "All of it." The door behind us opened, revealing Robert Graham and two of the undercover FBI agents. Their timing couldn't have been more perfect if we'd rehearsed it. "What's happening here?" Robert demanded, though his expression suggested he already knew. Nathan lunged suddenly, pushing past Maria toward the exit, but one of the agents moved with surprising speed, blocking his path. "Nathan Ellis," the agent said, producing his badge, "you're under arrest for attempted theft of classified information and conspiracy to commit espionage." Ashley's strangled sob echoed in the narrow corridor as the second agent approached her. "Ashley Andrews, you're under arrest for the same charges." As they were led away in handcuffs, Ashley looked back at me one last time, her expression a complex mixture of regret, anger, and disbelief, the face of someone whose carefully constructed world had just collapsed. Maria's hand found mine in the chaos, her fingers cool and steady against my trembling ones. "It's done," she whispered. "Not quite, I thought. The arrests were just the beginning. The true unraveling of our lives, and the potential for rebuilding, was only just starting." I returned to our house, no longer a home, at 3 a.m. after hours of FBI questioning. The agents had been thorough but respectful, aware that I was both a victim and a key witness. They'd explained the severity of the charges: corporate espionage, conspiracy, attempted theft of classified information. Ashley and Nathan would be facing years in federal prison. The house felt cavernous and eerily silent. I wandered from room to room, seeing everything through new eyes, the photographs on the walls now grotesque parodies of happiness, the furniture we'd chosen together tainted by deception. In our bedroom, Ashley's perfume still lingered in the air, her clothes still hung in the closet. Physical remnants of a woman who had become a stranger. I collapsed onto the edge of the bed, emotional exhaustion finally overwhelming me. The adrenaline that had carried me through the evening drained away, leaving a hollow ache in my chest. Not heartbreak exactly, that had come weeks ago when I'd first discovered her betrayal. This was something different. Emptiness. Finality. My phone buzzed with a message from Maria. "Are you okay?" Such a simple question with such a complicated answer. "Still standing," I replied, which was the most honest assessment I could offer. "Same. Call if you need anything. Even just to talk." Her kindness was a small warm spot in the cold landscape of the night. I set the phone aside and forced myself to shower, as if I could wash away the events of the evening along with the lingering scent of the hotel ballroom. In the morning, harsh reality arrived with the sunrise. News of the arrests had broken overnight. "Corporate espionage ring busted at security firm Gala," screamed the headlines. Our names were protected for now, but it wouldn't take long for the press to connect the dots. Already, reporters had found our address, their cars lining the street outside like vultures waiting for carrion. I ignored the doorbell's persistent ringing and focused on a more immediate concern. The FBI had mentioned that Ashley kept a personal journal, possibly containing details relevant to their case. They'd asked if I knew where it might be hidden. I didn't. Ashley had always been private about her writing, but finding it now became my mission, something concrete to focus on amid the chaos. I searched methodically, starting with obvious places like her nightstand and desk, then moving to more creative hiding spots. Finally, behind a row of books on interior design that she never read but kept for appearances, I found it. A leather-bound journal, its pages filled with her elegant handwriting. I hesitated before opening it, some vestigial respect for her privacy battling with my need for answers. Need 1. The early entries were mundane reflections on our marriage, complaints about my long work hours, her boredom with suburban life, dreams of travel and excitement. Then, about a year ago, the tone shifted dramatically with the first mention of Nathan. Met with N again today. What started as a simple business arrangement is becoming complicated. He's charming and dangerous in exactly the ways Jay isn't. Says my access to Jay's company could be valuable to certain interested parties. I flipped forward several months, my hands trembling slightly. N thinks we could get at least $2 million for the complete security protocols. Enough to disappear somewhere beautiful. Part of me is thrilled by the risk, the secrecy. Another part feels sick about betraying Jay this way. He's kind, always has been. Just predictable. Safe. The word safe again, her dismissal of everything I'd tried to be for her. A later entry was more calculated. Started copying files from Jay's laptop last night while he slept. So trusting. Uses our anniversary as his password for everything. And says we need the server access codes to complete the package. Assured me the buyers aren't terrorists, just competitors. No one would actually get hurt. The delusion in those words, no one would actually get hurt, When the system she was stealing protected critical infrastructure, hospitals, water treatment facilities, lives would absolutely have been at risk. The final entry had been written just days ago. Party is on Friday. Final opportunity to get what we need. And says once we sell the data, we'll transfer the money offshore, then I'll file for divorce. By the time it's finalized, we'll be ready to leave the country. Sometimes I wake up next to Jay and almost tell him everything. But it's too late now. Too much at stake. I closed the journal, feeling strangely calm. The Ashley I'd loved had been gone long before I'd discovered her affair, perhaps had never truly existed. The woman who wrote these cold calculations was someone I didn't know at all. The doorbell rang again, more insistently this time. I peered through the window, expecting another reporter, but instead saw Ashley's parents standing on the porch, their faces drawn with shock and grief. I hesitated, then opened the door. Her father looked a decade older than when I'd seen him at Christmas, her mother's eyes red-rimmed from crying. "Jason," her father said, his voice breaking. "We just heard. We're so sorry." "We don't understand," her mother added, reaching for my hand. "This isn't the daughter we raised." I invited them in, away from the prying eyes of the press. As they entered the house their daughter had been planning to liquidate for her escape fund, I realized I wasn't the only victim of Ashley's choices. These good people who had welcomed me into their family were casualties too. "I found her journal," I said, gesturing to the leather book on the coffee table. "It might help you understand. Though I'm not sure anything really explains it." As they settled on the sofa, clutching each other's hands like survivors of a shipwreck, my phone buzzed with another message from Maria. "Breakfast? I could use the company and I make decent pancakes." For the first time in weeks I felt something like hope stirring, not for reconciliation or for fixing what was broken, but for the possibility that something new might eventually grow from these ruins. "I'll be there in an hour," I replied. 1 year after the arrest that shattered my life, I stood in front of the mirror adjusting my tie, barely recognizing the man who stared back at me. My face had changed, not just the new haircut or the slightly trimmer physique from regular gym sessions, but something in my eyes. They were clearer now, more focused, having seen both the worst and best of what life could offer. The trial had been mercifully brief. With overwhelming evidence against them, both Ashley and Nathan had accepted plea deals rather than face the maximum sentences. 5 years in federal prison, no possibility of early release given the national security implications. The prosecutors had been pushing for 10, but their cooperation in identifying the international buyers had earned them some leniency. I hadn't attended the sentencing. By then, I was already focused on rebuilding. My phone buzzed with a calendar reminder, volunteer session at 6. For the past 6 months, I'd been leading a support group for victims of relationship fraud and betrayal. What had started as part of my own therapy had evolved into something meaningful, a way to transform my pain into something useful. The doorbell rang precisely at noon. Maria was always punctual, a trait we shared among many others discovered over countless coffee meetings, late-night phone calls, and eventually dinners that stretched into breakfasts. "Ready for the big day?" she asked when I opened the door. Her smile still caught me off guard sometimes, how it transformed her face, erasing the shadows of our shared trauma. "As ready as I'll ever be," I replied, grabbing my jacket. "Robert's already texting me about the press turnout." Today marked the official launch of Ellis Andrews Security Consulting, our new venture specializing in corporate security and anti-espionage measures. The irony wasn't lost on either of us. Building a business from the ashes of betrayal, using our hard-won knowledge to protect others. "By the way," Maria said as we drove toward downtown, "this arrived for you." She handed me an envelope with prison markings on it. I recognized Ashley's handwriting immediately. This was her 3rd letter in a year. I'd never responded to the previous ones. "Are you going to read it?" Maria asked, her voice carefully neutral. She never pushed me about Ashley, understanding better than anyone the complexity of feelings that remained. "Later," I said, slipping it into my jacket pocket. The press conference went better than expected. Robert, now not just my former CEO but our company's first major client, introduced us with genuine enthusiasm. Tech journalists asked insightful questions about our proprietary protection systems. Business reporters seemed intrigued by our unusual origin story, though we kept those details professionally vague. "What made you decide to leave your successful position to start this venture?" one reporter asked me. I glanced at Maria before answering. Sometimes life forces a reset. What matters is recognizing when a challenge can become an opportunity. Hours later, after a celebratory dinner with our small team, Maria and I walked along the riverfront near her apartment. The night was clear, stars visible despite the city lights, the air carrying the first hint of autumn. "We did it," she said, bumping my shoulder gently with hers. "Actually launched a company. My father would be shocked, he always said I'd never leave the art world." "You're still creating," I pointed out. "Just security systems instead of sculptures." She laughed, the sound still new enough to warm me from the inside. "True. Though I've been thinking about getting back to the studio. Maybe just weekends at first." "You should," I encouraged her. "You showed me those sketches. They're incredible." We stopped at a bench overlooking the water, the same spot where we'd sat 6 months ago when our relationship had shifted from friendship to something more. The same spot where, 3 months later, I'd first kissed her, hesitantly, both of us still half afraid of trusting again. "I read Ashley's letter," I admitted, watching lights reflect on the dark water. "While you were taking that business call at dinner." Maria's hand found mine, a silent question. "She's teaching computer skills to other inmates. Says the irony isn't lost on her." I paused, sorting through my reactions. She apologized again. Said prison gave her clarity she never had before. "Do you believe her?" I considered the question carefully. "I believe she regrets getting caught. Regrets the consequences. But I'm not sure she fully understands the damage she caused." Maria nodded, understanding in her eyes. She'd received similar letters from Nathan, performative remorse that never quite rang true. "The strangest part," I continued, "is that I'm actually grateful now. Not for the betrayal but for the truth. I was living a lie without knowing it." "To truth then," Maria said softly, "however painful." "And to what comes after," I added. The small velvet box in my pocket felt suddenly heavy, not with doubt but with possibility. I'd planned to wait until our company launch was behind us, but sitting here with the woman who had walked through fire alongside me, timing suddenly seemed less important than certainty. I turned to face her fully, taking both her hands in mine. "Maria, this past year has taught me that life can change in an instant, for worse but also for better." Her eyes widened as I reached into my pocket. "I lost a life I thought was perfect but wasn't," I continued, opening the box to reveal the emerald ring she'd once mentioned loving. "And found something real instead." Tears glistened in her eyes, but her smile was radiant. "Are you asking what I think you're asking?" "I am," I confirmed, suddenly nervous despite our countless conversations about a shared future. "Maria Ellis, will you marry me?" "Yes," she whispered without hesitation. "Absolutely yes." As I slipped the ring onto her finger, I felt the final pieces of my old life falling away, making space for something stronger, more honest, and infinitely more precious. Sometimes I realized you have to lose what you thought was happiness to find what truly is.